The following episode contains descriptions of domestic violence. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or go to thehotline.org.
There are nearly 20,000 murders annually in the United States.
Perhaps it's the weather, but the Pacific Northwest has become the notorious home of serial killers and bizarre crimes.
We're here to discuss those murders,
To try to understand the motives,
respect and remember the victims.
and explore the humanity of it all.
I'm Emily Rowney.
And I'm Alicia Holland.
And this is Murder in the Rain. In honor of this holiday, we decided to give you a twofer.
It's a double wide
A double wide ep. 2 cases, 1 ep.
to keep you occupied on your travels as you make your way, hopefully very safely, to your destination, your final destination. Speaking of travel, every Thanksgiving, millions of Americans travel home for the holidays. This year, record numbers are expected, with 2.6 million travelers going through our nation's airports the day before Thanksgiving, 384,000 of which will be going through PDX alone.
Wow.
With the exception of crying babies, the stressed out families, and solo travelers dreading getting drunk with their racist uncles, flights tend to go off without a hitch. Or at least that has been the case since 1971. Because back then, a mysterious man with a nefarious plan boarded a plane on Thanksgiving Eve, leaving a legacy of one of the biggest heists and aviation crimes of all time. Today, I will be telling you the story of the one, the only, D.B. Cooper. What makes the D.B. Cooper case so interesting is hard to narrow down because there are a million reasons that it has caused such infatuation. One being it was the first American hijacking that was done for ransom. It was done for money. It wasn't, political demand. And it is the only American unsolved hijacking. It is a spiral of a case, and there are thousands of websites, stories, Reddit threads, groups, and more devoted to every imaginable theory surrounding it. On top of that, the information is just about 50 years old and wrapped in mystery and intrigue. The details are boiled down to the basics, but through the lens of legend and time, there are conflicting ideas on the exactness of the facts.
So are we going to solve it today?
Yeah. Duh. I've read and watched some of the information on this story to get the foundation. And for more details, please see google.com and type in DB Cooper and say goodbye to your weekend. It was a typical Thanksgiving Eve when, for $20, Dan Cooper purchased a one-way ticket from Portland, Oregon to Tacoma, Seattle on November 24th, 1971. What was supposed to be a 30-minute flight turned into a 7-hour hijacking and almost a 50-year mystery. Being that it was the 70s, there was no ID check, or weapons check for that matter, so whether or not Dan Cooper was even his real name remains unknown. But Dapper Dan boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 and headed to the back of the plane. This was back when people dressed appropriately for travel, so it wasn't unusual that the 40-something man was in a business suit, a raincoat, wearing loafers, carrying a briefcase, and a paper bag. Being that he was a fancy man, once seated, he requested a bourbon and 7-Up before lighting a cigarette. Could you even imagine being the thing I hate most about flying is just the idea, and I'm not a germaphobe, but just the idea of that air.
Oh, it's disgusting. Whenever I watch movies about it or that show Pan Am.
Yeah.
Oof.
Like that to me, just the thickness of the air, I hate. I'm like, can we just crack a window? And the idea of people being able to smoke, I can't even imagine how. Yeah. How did we get through the 70s and 80s as humans? Anyway, I would die. After 2:50 p.m. being good and airborne, Dan passed a note to Florence Shafter, one of the flight attendants. Thinking that he was just trying to pass on his number, she acknowledged the note before putting it in her pocket. He responded with a, "Miss, you better open that note. I have a bomb." Opening the letter, it read something to the effect of, "Miss, I have a bomb and would like you to sit by me." Florence complied as Dan then dictated to her what he was requesting as part of his hijack. $200,000 in cash by 5 p.m. in a knapsack, which in today's money was about $1.25 million. 2 front parachutes and 2 back parachutes, and a fuel truck to refuel the plane upon landing in Seattle. He flashed her his goods from the paper bag, which she later told investigators were red sticks and wires. Later, when she asked him as to why he chose their flight and/or airline, he responded with "I don't have a grudge against your airline, I just have a grudge." She took his demands to the cockpit, and the pilot radioed in the situation. The FBI was immediately involved and went to a bank in Seattle to get the money. Without Dan making a special request of denominations, they went with 20s. All the serial numbers were taken down, and they were microfilm copies. Hello, my dream of microfilm. Microfilm copies were made of each bill. And again, since he didn't ask for a specific denomination, it's a little confusing why they didn't go with hundreds. Just to make their lives easier. That's significantly less amount of bills, but they went with 20s anyway. At 5:39 p.m., the plane and its 36 passengers landed in Seattle. Not informing the passengers of the urgent situation, the pilot blamed a mechanical issue on the reason as to why they circled the Puget Sound for over 2 hours.
Whoa.
During this time, witnesses noted that Dan was cool and collected and, quote, rather nice. He continued to casually sip his bourbons and smoke half a pack of cigarettes. Witnesses felt Dan must have been familiar with the area, as occasionally he would point out cities and landmarks.
Just casually giving a tour.
Yeah.
Out there.
Like at one point, one of the accounts was that he kind of pointed out the window, was like, oh, that must be Tacoma. So not totally unfamiliar with where he was. I find it hard to believe that none of the passengers were worried or confused about the situation, although they were probably pretty frustrated having their families waiting their holiday arrival while they continually circled over the city. But this was one of the first hijackings, and it was very pre-9/11, so a dangerous scenario probably never crossed their minds. Once on the ground in Seattle, the passengers and 2 attendants were allowed to leave the plane. Dan then made his location request to the pilot, Mexico City. The pilot then informed Dan that although they had just refueled, the gas tank of the plane did not allow for enough fuel to make it to Mexico City. It was just too far. So the pilot offered different options, and Dan took him up on one. Reno.
Yeah.
The Mexico City of Nevada. As they made their way south, Dan started packing up, getting all of his personal items together, including all of the notes that had been written. So there's actually no copy of what was actually said. So, again, through the years.
He was a smarty.
He was rather smart. Yeah, there's no handwriting to compare, no fingerprints, DNA, nothing. Dan seemed to know a lot about flying, as he made very specific requests on just how exactly they would get to Reno. Wings and landing gear would be down, and they would cruise at an elevation of 10,000 feet and a speed about 200 miles per hour. This made for a difficult task for the Air Force jets that were now following them. Around 8 p.m., Tina Mucklow, the attendant that was asked to remain on board, was then told to go to the cockpit. As she went, she turned back to see what looked like Dan tying the knapsack of money to his waist. At 8:02 p.m., the cockpit alarm indicated that the back door had been opened, and being one of the only models to have them, the rear stairs were deployed. Documenting the pressure change and timing, it is believed that around 8:10 p.m., Dan Cooper, wearing a back parachute, business suit, loafers, and his iconic mirrored aviator lens shades, leapt from the back of the aircraft. Thus began one of the biggest manhunts in U.S. history and an aviation mystery nearly 50 years deep. On Thanksgiving Day 1971, an area just over 20 square miles near the town of Ariel, Washington, was overrun with federal agents, local police, and search party personnel. Using the timeline of the door being opened on the plane, the wind speed and direction, and plane speed, authorities believed this to be the most likely landing spot. For days and days the search went on, but not a single clue was found. The now infamous sketch was released after interviewing the flight attendants, and they came up with nearly identical descriptions of the mystery man. Then came the DB. Originally Dan on his plane ticket, there was an error on the news that read DA, which then, through the process of playing telephone, became DB in a newspaper. Although there was a European comic of a James Bond type man by the name of Dan Cooper, DB is agreed by all to sound way cooler, so it stuck. But it was never part of the original narrative, so I kind of wonder how Dan feels about that. Like, maybe his real name was Dan in all these years. It's like
You just look him up in the phone book.
the infamous
Dan
DB Cooper. He's like, but it was me, Dan.
Damn it.
Eventually, the plane landed in Reno and was immediately searched by the FBI. They found his cigarette butts, the leftover parachutes, and his clip-on tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip.
Ooh,
Authorities, very fancy, but also not fancy, like clip.
I mean, convenient.
He didn't want it falling off while he was flying and poke him in the eye. Authorities immediately started to look at military personnel, people comfortable with aircraft and jumping out of planes. Paratroopers, pilots, anyone that might fit the bill. Eventually, their list was whittled down to just about 1,000 suspects.
Oh, that's it? That's easy.
Mm-hmm. Then on April 7th, 1972, the FBI thought they caught a break. A man in Denver, Colorado, hijacked a plane. In a similar fashion to DB, he requested $500,000, parachutes, and then jumped out of the plane.
Just a fanboy, or is this legit?
Well, he probably would have gotten away with it, except he had decided to run his mouth to a friend before he committed the crime, bragging, saying that he could have done what DB Cooper did, except he would have gotten away with it, but with more money. So the friend turned him in, and authorities did a search of Richard McCoy's house, finding his wife and kids, and tucked away in a cabinet a jumpsuit and a duffel bag full of cash. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. The FBI was all over this guy because the MO fit so well to DB Cooper, so they showed his photo to all the witnesses from the original hijacking. Every single one said he looked nothing like DB Cooper. He was, a fanboy, just a copycat, nothing more. Then in 1980, while walking with his dad along the Columbia River, a young Brian Ingram found something odd buried in the sand. It was money. Old, moldy money. But it was still money. They kept digging and they found about 3 bands worth, and they realized that this was something a little bit more than a lucky break, and they called it in. Authorities shut down Tina Bar, which is a small beach area on the Washington side of the Columbia River. Just across is Savi's Island, so it's not too far north from Portland. They continued the search, and in all they found $5,800, but nothing more. At first, it was believed that because there had been a dredging on the beaches in 1974, the money had to have been placed there after that time. Then, in the early 2000s, as investigations continued, it was learned that the dredging had stopped just 150 feet away from where the money was found, meaning that it could have been there as early as Thanksgiving 1971. This money was 20 miles away from the drop zone and the original search area, so there's no telling how it got there and where the rest of it was. In 2007, a new suspect came to the forefront of the case. Skip Porteous was a New York City private eye when a man called him and claimed his brother was DB Cooper. The brother's name was Kenneth Christensen, and in 1994 he was on his deathbed when he said to his brother Lyle, quote, "There is something you should know, but I can't tell you." Lyle knew he was referencing his deepest secret, that he was DB Cooper. Kenneth had been a flight attendant for Northwest Orient Airlines. It was known that Ken had grievances or perhaps even a grudge against the recent pay cut and employee issues. He made okay money, but it wasn't like he was the president of the airline. So within a year after the hijacking, it was curious that he bought a decent-sized house in cash. Ken was known to smoke, and his drink of choice was bourbon. Not that those are the most unusual combos, but they are a match nonetheless. Looking into him further, information connected Ken in more than just a choice of drink. He had been a paratrooper in the military.
Ooh.
When shown a photo of him, witnesses couldn't say for sure it was him, but they did say that of all the suspects they had seen, he was the closest match. With Kenneth now being dead and there was no actual confession, the FBI really didn't bother to look much further into the claims. Next on the list is John List. And that name might sound familiar if you are a Forensic Files fan. You know the name from that episode where the guy killed his mom and the kids and left them in the house in New Jersey, and then he was on the run. And he wasn't caught until the forensic face analysis guy did that clay molding
Not
to
ringing a
show his
bell for me.
aging. Oh my God, it's like beyond classic. Anyway, so this expert, this was before they had the aging technology. And so he built a mold of the guy's face based off the picture he had, and then he aged him. And the one thing he did was he put really thick rimmed glasses on him, and he said he's probably hiding this secret of killing his family, so he's still like guarding himself with these glasses. And it was off of that was shown on, I think, America's Most Wanted, and a woman was like, "That's my neighbor."
Whoa.
Anyway,
I'm
so
going to go watch that.
oh, it's so good. John List, look him up. It's a great case, and we won't be doing it because it was New Jersey. So he had killed his whole family in New Jersey, so maybe it was possible he made his way all the way west, hopped on a plane, and hijacked it for money to live off of, and he wouldn't have any family, missing him or calling and turning him in, so maybe he was D.B. Cooper. But the FBI decided that List was actually in Denver at the time of the hijacking. In 1995, Dwayne Weber also made a deathbed confession, this time to his wife, Jo. "Come closer," he said. "I have a secret to tell you. I'm Dan Cooper." Her interest piqued. She started to look into it. Dwayne was very private about his past, and he was known to have kind of been a con artist, and he did some time back in the day, but he also served in the military. He had saved a Northwest Airlines ticket that she saw one time, and she tried to bring it up, and he immediately discarded the conversation and walked away.
Suspicious.
Very suspicious. His photo, build, age, etc. all fit the description, as did his choice of drink and smokes. He was familiar with Tena Beach, and in a local library, Dwayne's handwriting was found in a book about D.B. Cooper. At one point, Jo and Dwayne went on a drive through the Northwest. When in Southwest Washington, they got to a wooded area, and Dwayne pointed and said, "That's where D.B. Cooper walked out of the woods." She asked how he knew and said, "Maybe I was on the ground." She just thought he was joking, and the FBI took her claim seriously, but again, nothing really came of it. So finally for today, not finally as though we've gone through all the suspects, because remember, there are about 1,000, there's Lynn Doyle Cooper. And right off the bat, the last name is a match. In 2011, Marla Cooper, LD's niece, came forward to claim that she was certain that her uncle was in fact D.B. Cooper. He was an Army veteran from Sisters, Oregon, and when he arrived to the family dinner that Thanksgiving in 1971, he was a, quote, bloody and bruised and a mess. His reasoning? That he had been in a car accident. Marla tried to convert members of her family to her side, even convincing her own mom that he was D.B. If ever the topic was broached, it would immediately get shut down. Marla's cherry on top of her suspicions was that on Thanksgiving, she claims to have heard Cooper say, quote, "We did it. Our money problems are over." So I like and hate this one. I like the timing. I like his name. I like that he was beat up.
That's really cutting the timeline pretty close, though.
That is close, but
And how would he have known he would have gotten everything he needed in order to take off and be dropped off and make it to family dinner?
right. That's part of the hate of it, for sure. The other part for me is if you're at Thanksgiving and you go to the corner and go, "We did it. We've got all this money." Like, as we learned from the dude in Colorado, like, people don't keep their mouths shut,
true.
especially when there's money involved that they aren't going to get to have.
Also, he was so smart. Why would he have used his real last name?
Ego, to get away with it. The Cooper is attached. So LD Cooper was investigated, but eventually eliminated as a suspect.
Bet that makes for an awkward Thanksgiving meal every year.
Hi, Marla. Remember when? Well, also, but like, oh, you thought I was cool enough to do that? I'm not mad at it.
Favorite niece? Wait, niece, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One theory is that DB survived the jump and randomly chose Tena Beach to bury some of the money. That would be odd, as he never went back for it, and by the time it was found, only a few bills in the center of the bundles were still even legible, let alone spendable.
So wait, are you saying that they were able to match those bills
Yes,
to the microfilm?
yes,
Okay.
the serial numbers did match. So you have to imagine these, bands of 20s, and, for 9 years, approximately, probably. They're deep in the sand and water and weather. So the outer ones were basically
Just the
trash.
inside ones they
And then deep in, they were able, and they're pretty cool pictures. I mean, they're literally like, however long a bill is. What, 5 inches? How long is a bill? Like 5 inches?
5.5, 6.
Yeah. So like it's about 1
I'll
inch
find out.
tall.
Oh, wait,
Okay.
look
Oh
what
yeah.
I
Hey, could you
happen to
Google that?
have right here.
Do you have a ruler? Just because you're
Well,
bragging about having money.
It's the exact same length of my iPhone.
Okay, so
Do you
Google
think they did that on purpose?
Google how long an iPhone is, and we'll have our answer.
6.14 inches long.
Ooh, I was
Okay,
close.
and what, like 3 inches?
3.6 inches wide.
Okay.
Are you sure you're describing the bill?
Actually, ladies, 8.4 and 8.4. So,
And square. Not awkward at all.
so the bills are just a little bit shorter, worn on the edges, and only about an inch tall, if that. So, inch thick. So yeah, so the money is destroyed, but the serial numbers that they could find did
I can't
match.
imagine someone purposely putting them there, like unless they were taunting. Like somebody's gonna find this.
Like, look, I have so much money. But again, why didn't you leave like one wad to be like, here's some and here's some, you would scatter it.
Now, did any of it get into circulation?
Not that they know of. So that's the other thing.
It's hard with microfilm too.
Right. Another theory is that when DB jumped, he landed in the water. With the temperatures outside and the temperatures of the water being as cold as they were, he would only have mere moments to get out of the water and get warm, which, if you originally had a plan of getting to Mexico City and then you settle for Reno, you don't, like you said, like you're not going to have a plan.
Right.
You don't have someone sitting in a getaway car waiting for you, especially in Ariel, Washington. So he lands in the water. Authorities assume probably the Lewis River. He drowns or freezes to death, and he's carried to the Columbia. The Tena Bar is just a few miles from the Lewis and Columbia conflux. So that makes sense as far as how the money maybe
some
got
money
there.
could get there, and the rest of him is somewhere in the ocean.
But the holdup on that is the Columbia at that point is upstream. So where the Tena, like where the money was, is upstream from that conflux. So then the idea is, well, you've got barges, you've got big ships that go through that area. It's possible his body comes floating through the Lewis, connects at the Columbia, and instead of floating downstream, he gets caught up in a ship. It drags him up, and then eventually he's uncaught from the ship, and then he floats out to sea within a couple days. And now a brief word from our sponsors. And if you find these ads annoying, you could just sign up for Patreon and not have to listen to any of them.
It takes a bold and unwavering detective to seek justice when 3 women disappear in Santa Ana, California without a trace. Detective Julissa Trapp always wanted to be a cop, but she's not like other cops. She's the only woman on an all-male homicide squad, and she does her job in a way some might find unconventional. Wondery and the Los Angeles Times bring you a brand new podcast called Detective Trapp. Hosted by award-winning journalist Chris Goffard, Detective Trapp is the story of a detective who, despite personal struggles and society's indifference, fights to bring a serial killer to justice. Listen and subscribe to Detective Trapp on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever your ears might take you. We'll leave a link in this week's episode notes.
Emily, it's already holiday season. Can you believe this?
I know, it snuck up on us this year.
I am stressing so hard because I never have anything for my guests to do. We all just sit around and look at each other and smile at cat videos, and we just have nothing to do to pass the time.
I think I can help you this year because my struggle has always been last minute shopping. I'm wandering around Target, drinking my latte, going, what the heck am I buying? Auntie Susan, I don't know, especially because I don't have an Auntie Susan. I don't know what to get her.
It's hard to buy for.
Well, this year I decided to do something different and order a board game, and that might be something you could use.
Absolutely. I love board games.
Well, let me tell you about this one. It's called Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, and it's full of murder and intrigue, deduction, and deception. Basically, one person's the murderer, another person's a forensic scientist who holds the key to putting the murderer away, and everyone else has to work together to solve the crime.
That sounds perfect.
Right up our alley, right?
And my family's alley. We love murder.
This year, if you want to make Christmas shopping a little bit easier and have something to do with your friends and family, go to greyfoxgames.com and pick up your copy of Deception: Murder in Hong Kong today.
You can enter murder at the checkout and you'll get 25% off and free shipping. It comes to your door. You don't even have to think about it.
Drink that eggnog, baby.
And play Deception:
Murder in Hong Kong.
The website citizensleuths.com. So if you really want to dive into this case, start there. They literally are citizen sleuths that were able to get a lot of people and time connected to it and just piece by piece went through every part of this case. They committed 3 years to finding out everything that they can about it. While they didn't determine a culprit, they did determine a few things. One, his tie was run through new technology and was found to have millions of microparticles on it. Even back in the day, so his mother of pearl tie clip, there was some pollen on it, and that would have come in the spring, not in the fall when this was happening. So they were hoping, okay, maybe we run the pollen and that'll tell us more an area of where he lived.
But it's like dandelion.
Right, yeah. And I didn't hear anything as far as like what that was found. So they run the tie itself and they find all these microparticles, and these particles were not common in regular daily life, and they narrowed it down. And what would make sense was that he was wearing this tie in a manufacturing type scenario, and being a tie, probably a manager. So with what particles they found, their idea was maybe he worked at Boeing because of the type of metals.
And he knows planes.
And he knows planes. And while the idea of planning on jumping in a suit seems unusual, perhaps he was in a higher up position and felt more comfortable in those clothes. Or perhaps it is the opposite and throws investigators off his trail.
So did they ever find out if managers had left the company?
Not anything that I read on.
Because they would have probably been closed that day anyway.
Right.
Interesting.
So, and the drinks he had and the cigarettes he smoked, they were all kind of bougie. So he's in the suit and all that. So is he this bougie fancy man that's how he felt most comfortable? Or is he this blue collar guy and he's trying to throw off the trail by making them look at all this fancy stuff and be cool, calm, and collected James Bond, playing pretend? Who knows? Citizen Sleuths noted that the language used when asking for the money, it's possible that he said negotiable American currency, and he was noted as having no accent at all. So no accent and using that language, and also not worried about Thanksgiving per se, led people to believe that D.B. Cooper may have actually been French Canadian. That comic that I mentioned at the the James Bond Dan Cooper guy, that was only available in French. So perhaps he was French Canadian. He knew this Dan Cooper, this random comic that wasn't, worldwide famous, inspired by that. And I'm going to go to this random, just pick something on the map, go hop on a plane. Maybe he's familiar with the area because of work. Who knows? Perhaps America's greatest aviation mystery was committed by a Canuck. Experts still can't agree on whether or not they think DB had experience in jumping. He chose an unsteerable parachute, and he didn't ask for a specific denomination when it came to the money, which changed the weight of what he would have been jumping with. With $100 bills that would have only weighed about 5 pounds, but because they did 20s, the bag weighed about 23 pounds, which needs to be taken into consideration when you're jumping. It changes, when you pull the cord and all of that.
Maybe he went on a diet before. Lost 23 pounds.
But what if they had come with hundreds? See?
Good point.
Too many variables. He also chose a horrible time of year, not only busy holiday travel, but you have rain and wind chill was nearly freezing. So why jump in the pitch black night of winter? But again, are you so experienced? You know to jump. It doesn't faze you. You can jump late at night and be disoriented. There are so many angles and questions to the case that if he died, upon landing, wouldn't there have been someone missing? A brother, a husband, a son, a coworker, somebody that would have said, my person is missing, and eventually would have matched the description. So
Unless
it's
they
like,
were in on it.
yeah, but again, who doesn't eventually say, hey, where's Greg? You kind of want him to have lived and gotten away. They didn't find there was
it
no
would be
other money.
so good if he survived, lived a long life.
Right?
But I want those bills in circulation.
I know. DB's legend lives on. There have been numerous books written about him. His sleek suit and aviator glasses are synonymous with his, what some consider to be an actual heroic act of really sticking it to the man and getting away with it. In the Northwest-based show Twin Peaks, the character Dale Bartholomew Cooper is named in honor of the local hero. America's golden child, Kid Rock, references him in his classic jam, Ba Wit Da Ba,
Did you just say golden child?
with the line, for D.B. Cooper and the money he took. Every Saturday after Thanksgiving, the town of Ariel, Washington holds D.B. Cooper Day and celebrates the local legend. So if you're in the area, we will actually be seeing you there this year because we're going to make our way up to Ariel, Washington the Saturday after Thanksgiving and see what that's all about. And I'm hoping to, because he goes there, Brian, who as a boy found the money, he actually attends D.B. Cooper Days.
Oh, that would be fun.
I'm hoping to get to meet him and talk about his experience of finding the money. So stay tuned for that. In 2016, the D.B. Cooper case was officially closed. Closed but not forgotten. So actually, if you do have any information, authorities are still willing to listen. But all in all, D.B. Cooper won this round. And again, part of me is like, if he had died, wouldn't you have found a piece of the parachute, any more of the money? Like, if the bag ripped open and was pouring enough money out that wouldn't it be open and it would have been more places?
Maybe they'll find his aviator glasses at the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, so yeah, it's like for there being no evidence, it's like, okay, he probably did get washed out to sea. And on the other hand, it's like, no, you want him to live and have that money.
Maybe he was so well planned.
But what if he's just Greg, an insurance agent, and you're like, and he
That'd
just
be
and he
even
just
better.
and he kept working, but he just lived out. He would splurge every once in a while. He just didn't have to worry about money.
And it was on Thanksgiving. Right. He bought the turkey every year with that
He's like,
money.
don't worry, guys. I got Thanksgiving covered.
I like it. That's a good one.
So, yeah, check out citizensleuth.com for sure. There's a National Geographic special. There's a History Channel special. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Just literally millions of articles and stories and theories. So, good luck cracking the case of D.B. Cooper.
That's a good one. I'm going to bring it down a little bit from your case.
Well, like I said, my mom was mad because there was no murder. But,
we need a break now and then. We're
It's the
celebrating Turkey
holidays.
Day. Come on. But, back to the standard, I'm going to tell you a story that's a little more sad.
Great.
Nicholas Holden and his girlfriend of 2 years, Tina Stewart, traveled to Newman Lake, Washington to spend Thanksgiving with Holden's father in 2017. What started as a kid-free holiday for the two of them to enjoy ended as a nightmare with one life lost. Tina Stewart was originally born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1987. She moved to Spokane, Washington as a child and spent most of her life there attending high school, then community college, and eventually working at a local fast food restaurant and a daycare while she prepared for her dream of eventually being a vice principal at an elementary school. Kids were her life. Her Facebook page is plastered with pictures of her kids, her ex-boyfriend's child, her and her boyfriend Nick's kids, all depicting them enjoying parties, camping, fishing, you name it. Tina began dating Nicholas Holden after a mutual friend, Stephanie, set them up. Stephanie had met Tina when Tina began dating her ex, Andrew Estes, whom she shared a daughter with. They hit it off right away, and she was actually very happy to have someone like Tina in her daughter's life. Tina and Andrew were together 12 years, and during that time, they had 2 kids together. Even after breaking off their engagement, they all included each other to make life easier on their kids. Stephanie and Tina remained best friends, so when Stephanie saw that Tina was lonely after her breakup with Andrew, she encouraged her to pursue her friend Nick. In 2015, Stephanie brought Tina to her friend's birthday with her because she knew Nick would be there. And by the end of the night, Tina and Nick swapped numbers, and within days, they grew very serious. Nick was described by Stephanie as sweet and loyal, but liked to party and was a little bit immature. She claimed that though the couple seemed very happy outwardly, they were different behind closed doors. On Nick's Facebook, which you can check out because it's still open, you can see many posts about Tina being his woman crush Wednesday and how she's his total world. There's even a video of them whispering I love yous to each other and kissing sweetly.
Gross.
It's actually kind of sweet.
No, I don't care who ends up in what position in the story. That's gross.
Okay, well, this is what they presented to the world, being very doting on each other. However, Stephanie describes that they argued frequently and Nick would buy her affection back with gifts. And she even claims that he would threaten Tina that he would post intimate photos of her on Facebook as revenge if she were to leave him or if she wouldn't forgive him.
Good guy.
One day, Andrew confided in Stephanie that one of the kids told him that Nick had headbutted Tina. When Stephanie called Tina to inquire about it, she denied it. She said it wasn't intentional or serious. It was just a little accident and the kids were exaggerating. She did, however, eventually tell Stephanie that they were in couples counseling because Nick had issues with anger, but no one ever confirmed that that was true. In the summer of 2017, Andrew also said that Tina had told him she was going to leave Nick, but that she was looking for the right time and had to make plans. That day never came. Instead, that fall, Tina accompanied Nick to his father's Thanksgiving, and that would be the last time anyone would ever speak to her again. On the morning after Thanksgiving, November 24th, 2017, Spokane County deputies were called to a residence in the 4000 block of North Meadow Lane at Newman Lake. Fire personnel and medics were already on the scene. Reports initially went to the fire department and they responded to a female in her 30s with an unknown medical problem. Life-saving efforts were made. Unfortunately, she could not be revived and she was pronounced deceased. When deputies arrived, they called for the major crimes detectives so that they continue the investigation after what they had found. So what happened that night? Nick and Tina had Thanksgiving dinner with Nick's father, and around 11 p.m., his father told detectives that after describing to his son how to turn on the jacuzzi, he said his goodnights, headed to bed with the television on. He claimed to have woken a few hours later to an unknown noise, but sat up, listened for a while, and when he didn't hear it again, he went back to sleep. The next morning, he woke to find Nick outside on the phone in a very panicked state, speaking with his mother. He then learned of the horrible scene in the basement. Tina's bloodied and beaten body lay lifeless on the floor. He then told Nick to call 911. When fire arrived on scene and were working to revive Tina, they noted major trauma on her body, pointing to a very serious physical assault. When they inquired with Nick what occurred, he responded that, quote, "We got into it last night. It was bad." The detectives arrived on scene shortly thereafter and found Nicholas Holden was detained in one of the deputies' vehicles. Detectives later learned from him in questioning that he and Tina argued after his dad went to bed and they went downstairs and it quickly became physical. According to Nick, Tina was throwing items at him, slapping him, and even threatening to go get a knife. That's when he cracked. He shoved her onto a bed, continued to punch her face, kick her body, and stamp on her. He then says things calmed down and they, quote, passed out on the floor together. He awoke in the early hours of the morning and described to detectives that he found Tina with blood and vomit on her face and noted that she was cool to the touch and unresponsive. So what does he do? He wipes the vomit away and goes back to sleep. He then woke up again hours later and realized she was unresponsive and cold to the touch. And that's when he panics and calls not 911, but his mom.
She's still cold.
So Stephanie, Tina's best friend, believes that the argument was over Tina having finally told Nick that it was over and she was leaving him. And that she believes he just snapped and beat her to death. And the pure aggression that he took out on Tina was reflected in the fact that he had 2 broken hands.
Oof.
Nicholas Holden was arrested for second-degree murder and initially held on a $500,000 bond. He pled not guilty and was facing up to 25 years for the murder of Tina Stewart. Ultimately, he was convinced by his lawyers to take a plea deal for a reduced sentence of 16 years, and he pled guilty. During his sentencing, Tina's family was able to address the man that took Tina from them. Nicholas was also given the opportunity to address the court and the family, which he apologized for what he did through tears. It came to light in the court that it was known Nicholas had a violent past, something Tina's family and friends had not been aware of. And of course, finding this out infuriated them. And had they have known, maybe something could have changed, but they decided to take steps to use that pain and anger to stop this from happening again. Tina Stewart's family is working to advocate for domestic violence victims. Their main goal has been to share Tina's story as often as they can to help women in similar situations. And they've actually already inspired 3 different women to come forward and get out of their home situations with their help.
That's awesome.
It's totally awesome. Totally awesome.
That's totally awesome.
Another close family friend, Don Estes, who is essentially Tina's uncle, he's related to her ex-boyfriend Andrew, has been working to pursue Tina's law. This is a law that would implement a registry for people convicted of domestic abuse in all 50 states. Unfortunately, not all states agree with the legislation. Some, like Pennsylvania, were on board with it, but Tina's hometown of Washington didn't think it was a great idea, and they're unconvinced that people would even register and that it just wouldn't be worth the money put in.
Home state.
Right. So the law was shot down this past February 2019. Boo. Something I think all of us can get behind, though, is another item Don is advocating for. He wants Congress to fund the DARE program, which we know as the infamous program to help teach kids about
drug abuse resistance education.
Yeah, there you go. But he wants it to actually include domestic abuse, which I think is great. A lot of these kids either come from homes where they're seeing it and not knowing any different, or they're just kind of like a,
and if you're worried about drugs, let's go more to the root of the problem, and then we don't have to worry about drugs. So let's do domestic abuse resistance education.
I wholeheartedly think that's a good idea, and I really hope this is something that can be added to the curriculum. And Don Estes, you are awesome. Mm-hmm. If you want to sign the petition to try to get Tina's Law enacted, go to change.org and search Tina's Law, or go to our blog and we'll have a direct link for you to sign up. In the end, we have one more life lost, but hopefully many more saved in the memory of Tina Stewart and other women like her.
It's hard to fathom anyone in any kind of political anything that would be like, nope.
I know. Well, and here's the thing.
The nonsense of what's wrapped around it is just mind-numbing.
I wrote this down for us to talk about for that reason. It seems silly we wouldn't do something similar. I was reading that Britain has Clare's Law, which is essentially the same thing. You basically, if you're convicted of a violent crime or domestic abuse, you get put on this list. And then as a partner, you can call in or email or go to your police department and they call it apply, but it's basically make an inquiry if your partner is on the list and you're told. And I think how many people could be saved early in a relationship?
Right. Of like, oh, because, I think people think that, people are in this cycle and they seek that out in a partner, or that when it starts happening, it's immediate, like within 2 dates, he's backhanding you. Right. And it's like, it doesn't. It's a slow,
they're grooming them. They want them to be to not live without them.
Yeah. It's the frog in the boiling water. Like you start on low and you don't realize. And so it's like that whole idea of, oh, he kind of got aggressive. That was weird. Maybe I'll just double check and go, oh, he did 3 years because he beat up his ex-wife, and it's like, oh, so this is his pattern. I got to get away now before I'm in it. And then it becomes impossible.
Because once you're in it and then he starts showing his true colors, at this point, there's so many kids involved. Like she has her 2 kids, her ex's kids spend a lot of time with them. He's got, I think, like 4.
Were there kids at the house, being that it was Thanksgiving?
No, so that it was kid-free. Okay. Her kids were with their father, Andrew, and his family, and the half-siblings and all that. So they were like having there's a lot of alcohol involved, obviously. Yeah, so I think he was blackout drunk and doesn't remember doing this, to be honest. But
to wake up twice, like, oh, she was cold, so I went back to sleep. Like,
there was an article that even said he may have woke up one more time and wiped it again and went back to sleep. So to do that 3 different wake ups and not even call 911 right away.
And it's like, you're such trash. It's not like I was in, we got into it. It was an accident and I'm panicking, so I'm in denial. Like, you don't picture that with this guy. You're just like, no, you are scum of the earth. And you're just like,
I want to see the background
that's
of
an
violence.
Inconvenience.
Like, is it a typical college frat party fight, or is this like a repeated, hitting your girlfriends kind of a situation. And his family, of course, they don't like what he did. She's close to them as well, but they're like, he made a mistake. And
Yeah, no.
and her family's pissed. 16 years is not enough. Their daughter is gone. The kids have no mother, and they can't even get this law passed yet.
Ugh, that's gross. Happy holidays.
So enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family and don't drink too much.
And make sure you're safe. And if you're in an unsafe situation,
reach out for help.
yeah.
There's plenty of help. Hey, email us. We'll help.
Honestly, yeah, for real. We can, if you are not comfortable, maybe your partner looks at your phone, maybe your partner looks at your email or something, like message us on Instagram, message us on our email, and
just listen to our podcast and they might have concerns with what you're willing to do to them.
just play it up loud and go, so reach out, talk to someone that you feel safe with, and you are a victim in this, and you're not to blame, and there's nothing to be ashamed of.
And guess what? Kids get on with their lives. They don't need to be around an abusive person.
Yeah. So, drive, fly, walk, kayak, scooter safely.
Board game safely.
No Monopoly. Don't bring up the president. Don't drink too much. And enjoy your tofurkey. The end. Josh, any final thoughts?
No. Bye. No. Thanks. Thanksgiving.
Murder in the Rain would love to get a special thank you and shout out to Lisa Guo for being our newest Patreon member. She's a drizzler. I mean, in the drizzle category, but we refer to her as a drizzler. She's going to get all sorts of cool stuff like ad-free episodes, extra content, a sticker, a note from us, all sorts of fun things. So please go to patreon.com and find Murder in the Rain to see all the cool things you can do to help support us, and we'll show some love back.
Nice. She's such a radio person.
Yeah. Outdated.
No, just like it just sounds great without practice.
Obsolete.
Useless.
Yeah. Past her prime.
She's really a newspaper of a person, you know?
No, that's not what I meant. Do we know any Thanksgiving songs? Everybody grab their patent leather shoes with the buckles.
In 1776, my friend knew Old England's war came to an end in 1776.
There really is a song then.
Well, I mean, that's not Thanksgiving.
Oh, but ish.
It's Americana. I do have a Thanksgiving song when I was in like third grade. And I came home and I asked my dad, because I was reading about pilgrims and stuff. And I came home and I asked my dad, what is this thing and this word? And he said, it's a cornucopia. And to help me remember, we came up with a song that goes, cornucopia, 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 cornucopia. So there's your Thanksgiving song.
That's good.
I just wanted
A
to share
Holland original.
that. Yeah.
Want to meet all my baby Joshies?
Oh, that face. Oh. I hate all aspects of Thanksgiving.
One thing I got into a couple years ago is making my own cranberry sauce from scratch, and I freaking love it. I'll put it on pumpkin pie, put it on, just eat it on the side, put it like a jam on a sandwich.
Is she going full Lieutenant Dan on us with, or what was his, Bubba Gump? I put my cranberry sauce on my potatoes. I put it on my pie. The pilot informed Dan that even though they had just refueled, the size of the plane didn't allow for enough fuel to
get to Mexico City.
Yep, we'll just leave that.
TKO. Finish him. Finish him.
The gas tank of the plane did not allow for enough.
Oh my God. I want to dress like that for Halloween, I think.
We can all dress like that when we go to the party. We ain't blowing the load of Halloween on DB Cooper. We're going to the DB Cooper dress as DB Cooper.
That's a good idea. Wait, no, I'll be a flight attendant, obviously.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm going to be the bag full of red sticks.
Am I invited to
Of
that?
course
Because
you
last
guys
time
are.
I got in trouble for riding a dog.
That wasn't at their place, though.
You rode a dog?
A dog that died like a year later. And he didn't die from the hip dysplasia thing.
Yeah, that's a weird. You
He
don't die from
was
that.
How do you know?
murdered.
Authorities immediately started to look at military personnel. I apologize.
Oy vey. Remember, that's the day you found out I was super into dog shows.
Emily is super into dog, like freaky into dog shows. Oh, they won Best in Show in 1997.
It was a German short hair pointer.
Whatever.
I thought it was the dog.
He stole something from me.
What does he have? Your
It's a
vape?
little Velcro, a piece of Velcro. He just stole it out of my hands. Ran away with it. Son of a bitch. There, he dropped it.
Okay.
He just wanted it away from you.
Wow.
He's like,
quick.
fuck you.
Fastest dog alive.
Okay. No more puppy time. This is serious biz.
Does he want up on the...
Can just hold him. Hold him like the chicken and MASH. Anyone?
I
MASH?
hate
I
the
hate
show
MASH.
MASH.
Yeah.
I hate
The
it.
worst
Everyone-
show in the world.
MASH
Yeah.
is the worst show.
Yeah, but you know the chicken episode.
No, I never watched
No.
it because it was
Refused.
so gross.
It made me feel ill when I would...
and
the
that
credits
song,
would come on.
"Suicide is
Painless.
Ugh, I hate that song.
When I lived with my grandfather in Vegas, he would watch it for hours every day, and he was
so
mostly
you
deaf.
like it a lot, huh?
Mostly deaf, and it would blare through the house. So like the soundtrack, the soundtrack of me
It's the
being
worst.
horrifically depressed in Vegas by my
Is
21-year-old, 22-year-old self is the sound of MASH.
Cool. Let's get down to business.
Ken was known to smoke and drink. Fuck.
Tina Stewart was originally born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1987. She didn't do that. She could not be revived and was pronounced... Good God. Bees. I think this is something that people shouldn't fight.
He's got the Pop-Tart
Henry.
thing.
Henry.
Murder in the Rain is produced and edited by Josh McCullough. Written and hosted by Emily Rowney and Alicia Holland. Artwork by Jamie Costa. Music by Kai Pfeiffer at kyfifer.com. Check out our website, murderintherain.com, for additional information on all cases, a fun interactive map, and be sure to subscribe so you can receive our newsletter. Check out the Mad Props page for coupon codes from some of our sponsors. We love your reviews and seeing them on all streaming platforms, especially iTunes. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And suck my balls.
Please put that in.